The war began without warning. The sky over Delta 9 station was filled with fire, alarms, and screams. The alien soldiers of the Vark Empire moved through the human colony like shadows, cold, efficient, and heartless. They came to break what they thought was weak. To them, humans were only small creatures with loud hearts and fragile bones. Inside the chaos, a small boy named Eli sat hidden behind a broken wall. His red-striped jacket was torn, his face covered with dust and tears. He was only 8, clutching a small toy made of old metal. Around him, the ground shook with every explosion. The world was falling apart. One of the alien soldiers found him. The creature was tall, scaled, and cruelly amused. It laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Look at this one!" it sneered, its claws reaching out. A weak little human. "How do such things survive?" Eli did not answer. He only whispered something under his breath. The alien leaned closer. "What did you say, tiny prey?" Eli's voice trembled but held something strange, calm. "You shouldn't have said that." Before the alien could reply, a low growl echoed from the dark corridor behind the boy. At first it sounded like a hiss of steam. Then it grew deeper, raw and wild. The alien turned, annoyed, but froze as 2 glowing eyes appeared in the smoke. From the shadow stepped something small but powerful, muscles coiled like steel. Its fur was black and white, but its presence was darker than fear itself. It was Eli's companion, a honey badger named Rook. The soldiers nearby began to laugh. "That's it? The humans send rodents now?" But Rook didn't care. His eyes never left the alien holding the child. His low growl became a sound that cut through the chaos like a blade. The alien stepped back. Something in its instincts screamed danger. Eli whispered, "Rook!" It hurt the people again. The honey badger tilted his head, then charged. It happened faster than anyone could see. A flash of claws, a scream, and the armored alien fell to the floor, its weapon clattering away. The laughter stopped. Blood marked the walls. The Vark soldiers raised their guns, but Rook didn't retreat. He stood between Eli and the soldiers, fur bristling, teeth gleaming under the flickering blue lights. The soldiers began to open fire. Bullets hit metal, sparks flying everywhere, but none reached the boy. Rook moved like lightning, a blur of rage and purpose. He didn't fight for revenge. He fought for his human. Every alien that faced him soon learned that strength wasn't just in size or technology. It was in loyalty, fury, and heart. One soldier screamed as Rook bit through his armor. Another fell trying to flee. The rest began to panic. "What is that thing?" one shouted. Eli stood still, eyes wide, voice quiet. "That's Rook. He doesn't like bullies." Soon the corridor fell silent. Smoke, fire, and the faint hum of broken lights filled the air. Rook stood breathing heavily, his claws dripping. He turned back to Eli, pressing close like a guardian waiting for orders. Eli placed a small hand on Rook's head. "Good boy," he whispered. Somewhere deeper in the station, human survivors saw what happened. The image spread across the colony, footage of a tiny child and a fearless honey badger standing over fallen alien soldiers. To the humans, it became hope. To the aliens, it became fear. Across the Vark command ship, officers replayed the footage again and again. One of them hissed, "That was no pet!" That was a weapon. But the human soldiers who later found Eli knew better. It wasn't a weapon. It was something else. Something the galaxy couldn't understand. It was the bond between a human child and a creature that didn't know fear. News of the attack spread faster than light. Across the broken human colony, whispers began to rise, not of defeat, but of something strange. The story of a small boy and a beast that tore through alien soldiers became the one spark that refused to die. Inside the medical bay of the human bunker, Eli sat on a cold bed. His small hands held a bandage against a cut on Rook's shoulder. The honey badger didn't flinch. He just stared at the metal door as if expecting more trouble. The medic, an older human named Lieutenant Mara, watched them carefully. "You're lucky, kid. That creature of yours. I've never seen anything move like it. What is it, some kind of experiment?" Eli shook his head softly. "No, he's just my friend." Rook let out a low rumble, half a growl, half a warning. The lieutenant took a step back. Right, some friend. Outside, the sound of chaos still echoed through the colony tunnels. The Vark Empire didn't retreat, they regrouped. Now they wanted revenge. To them, this wasn't about war anymore. It was about pride. The death of their soldiers at the claws of a human animal was a humiliation they would erase. On the Vark command ship orbiting the planet, Captain Dravkor stood before his officers. His scaled skin shimmered under the blue light. "We were mocked," he hissed, "by a child and a beast. Find them. Bring me their heads." The aliens saluted in silence, their faces twisted in hate. They didn't know that fear had already started crawling into their hearts. Back in the bunker, Mara looked at Eli again. "The soldiers are coming back. We need to move you to the main shelter." Eli didn't respond. He looked up at Rook, who tilted his head as if listening to something no one else could hear. Then the badger moved toward the door, nose twitching, claws scraping lightly against the floor. "What is it?" Mara asked. The door exploded inward before anyone could answer. Alien troopers flooded the corridor, shouting in their harsh, echoing tongue. Blaster fire lit up the room. Mara fell back, grabbing her rifle, returning fire. The walls shook with each blast. Rook leaped forward like a shadow come alive. In seconds, the nearest alien soldier went down, screaming. Armor cracked, claws tore through the plating, and the others opened fire again, but the badger was too fast. He moved with a precision no weapon could match, slipping through gunfire like smoke, taking them down one by one. Mara froze mid-battle, watching in disbelief. "That thing's not fighting. It's thinking." Eli stood up from behind the bed. His voice was quiet but steady. "He knows who hurt us." The last alien tried to retreat, but Rook pounced, landing on his chest and knocking his rifle away. The soldier screamed as the honey badger snarled inches from his face. For a second, Rook paused. His black eyes locked on the trembling alien. Then Eli spoke softly, "Stop, Rook," and the beast obeyed. The silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. Smoke filled the corridor. Mara lowered her rifle. "He listens to you?" Eli nodded, walking closer. "He always listens." Rook stepped aside as Eli approached the alien soldier, now shaking in terror. The boy looked at him calmly, his voice low. "You called us weak." The alien's breathing stuttered. Eli leaned closer. "Now you know what fear means." Minutes later, the battle was over. The survivors regrouped in the main hall. Everyone had seen what happened. Humans stared at the small boy and the blood-streaked honey badger as if they were seeing something sacred. Captain Mara put a hand on Eli's shoulder. "Kid, whatever happens next, that thing, your friend, just changed this war." In the distance, radio static crackled through the bunker. A soldier's voice came through, trembling. "Command, the Vark troops are pulling back. They're scared." For the first time in days, the bunker went quiet. Not out of fear, but disbelief. Mara turned toward Eli. "You just made the most dangerous army in the galaxy afraid." Eli looked down at Rook, who yawned softly, curling beside him like it was all nothing. The boy smiled faintly. "Good. Maybe now they'll leave us alone." But Mara knew better. Fear doesn't stop wars, it changes them. And somewhere above the planet, the Vark commander was already planning something far worse. The child and his honey badger had become more than survivors. They were a symbol, and the galaxy was about to learn what happens when humanity stops running. The night sky above Delta 9 burned with silent fire. The human resistance hid deep underground while the Vark Empire spread across the ruins, searching. But what they were looking for was no longer just a child. It was a legend that refused to die. Eli and Rook traveled through the tunnels guided by faint blue lights. The air smelled of metal and dust. Behind them, the sound of explosions echoed from far away. The humans were fighting back, inspired by what they had seen, the boy and his impossible protector. Lieutenant Mara led the small group. "We have to reach the comms tower," she whispered. "If we send that footage to every colony, it'll give them hope." Eli nodded quietly. His hand rested on Rook's back as the badger moved ahead, alert, his senses sharp. Every few meters he stopped, sniffed the air, and growled low. "They're close," Mara muttered. "They're hunting us." "They always do," Eli said softly. "But they never win." Moments later, a loud metallic crash came from behind. The team turned, and the corridor filled with red light. Dozens of Vark soldiers stormed in, their armor glowing with fury. At their front stood Captain Dravkor himself. His eyes burned with rage. "There," he hissed. "The child and the beast. Kill them both!" The humans fired first. The narrow tunnel turned into chaos. Blaster shots, screams, the smell of plasma and blood. Mara shouted orders, but the aliens kept coming. Dravkor advanced like a monster from a nightmare, unstoppable. Rook's fur bristled, his eyes locked on the captain. Eli took one small step forward. "Rook," he whispered. "He's the one." The honey badger launched himself forward faster than the human eye could follow. He hit Dravkor with full force, knocking him into a wall. The alien roared, slashing his claws, but Rook was already behind him, biting deep into his shoulder. Sparks flew as metal armor tore apart like paper. Dravkor screamed and swung his arm, throwing Rook across the corridor. The creature slammed into a bulkhead, then rose again, shaking his head, eyes glowing like molten iron. "Impressive," Dravkor hissed. "For a pet." Eli's small voice cut through the battle noise. "He's not a pet. He's family." Dravkor raised his plasma blade, stepping toward the boy. "Then you can die together." Before he could strike, Rook charged again, this time silent, deadly, unstoppable. The impact shook the corridor. They crashed into a wall, the light flickered, and the captain roared as the badger's claws sank deep into the metal around him. Blaster fire stopped. Every alien froze. The Vark captain, their leader, was pinned under a creature half his size, bleeding and defeated. Rook bared his teeth, a low growl rumbling through the floor. Eli walked closer, calm and steady, eyes fixed on the terrified aliens. "You came here to destroy us," he said quietly. "Now look at what you fear." Mara raised her rifle toward the remaining soldiers. "Drop your weapons!" she shouted. None of them moved. Their eyes stayed on Rook, the monster that had broken their commander. When the battle ended, the humans escaped through the upper tunnels. Behind them, the once proud Vark troops stayed silent, dragging their wounded captain away. No one dared to chase. Hours later, on the surface, the resistance gathered around the communication tower. The transmission was ready. Mara uploaded the footage, the fight, the roar, the fall of the Vark captain. Within hours, every human colony received it. Across planets and space stations, screens flickered to life, showing the image of a small boy standing beside a fierce creature under burning lights. A voice echoed through the broadcast. They mocked the human child's weakness. The honey badger showed them what fear means. For the first time in the long war, alien fleets hesitated. Whispers spread through their ranks. Some refused to fight. Some deserted. Others spoke in hushed tones about the beast from Earth that no weapon could stop. Eli sat under the stars that night, Rook curled beside him. "Do you think it's over?" he asked softly. Mara looked at the distant horizon, where ships still burned in the sky. "No," she said, "but they'll never see us as weak again." Rook raised his head, sniffing the air, his gaze fixed on the stars, as if daring the universe to try again. The stars above Delta 9 flickered red. The Vark fleet burned in orbit, humiliated and silent. Across the galaxy, their defeat became a symbol. A child and a creature from a forgotten planet had broken their pride. Captain Dravkor survived, though barely. His right arm was gone, the metal torn apart by Rook's claws. Inside the medical chamber of the flagship, he stared at the reflection of his scarred face. "They think they can shame us," he hissed. "Then we will remind them what fear truly is." The Vark Emperor approved a single order: find the child, kill the beast, erase the humans. Down on the surface, Eli and Mara's small resistance group had turned into a legend. More humans arrived through hidden channels, bringing weapons, supplies, and hope. The old tunnels now echoed not with despair, but with purpose. But Rook never rested. The honey badger prowled at night, watching every shadow, every corner. He could sense something coming, something worse than before. One evening, Eli sat beside him, the campfire flickering softly. "Do you ever get scared, Rook?" he asked. Rook turned his head, eyes glowing in the dim light. He made a low grumble, half amusement, half warning. Mara chuckled from behind them. "I don't think fear exists in that creature's dictionary." Before Eli could smile, alarms blared. The ground shook violently. The night sky above the colony split apart as massive ships descended, blotting out the stars. Mara shouted into her comms, "They found us! Defensive line! Now!" Dozens of humans rushed into position, grabbing rifles and setting up barricades. The sky poured with fire as alien drop pods slammed into the ground, releasing armored soldiers unlike any seen before. Their armor was black, their weapons glowing with energy that hummed like thunder. Eli grabbed his pack. "They're after us again," Mara nodded grimly. "They won't stop this time." Rook growled, fur standing on end, eyes locked on the horizon. Then came the roar of engines. A towering machine stomped through the smoke. A Vark battle mech, 10 meters tall, with blades like wings and cannons blazing red. On top of it stood Dravkor, his new cybernetic arm glowing. He looked down with pure hatred. "Bring me the boy." The battle that followed was chaos. The Vark stormed the camp in waves. Humans fought fiercely but were outnumbered. Explosions tore through the defenses. The earth cracked open. Eli ran, ducking behind fallen debris as plasma fire scorched the air. Mara covered him, firing shot after shot, shouting orders. "Fall back! Keep the boy safe!" But Dravkor wasn't after the humans. His gaze followed Rook. "Come then, beast!" The honey badger charged straight into the battlefield. Bullets and plasma bolts hit around him, but he didn't stop. He leapt onto the mech's leg, claws tearing metal like paper, climbing with impossible speed. Sparks flew as he ripped cables and armor plating apart. "Impossible!" Dravkor shouted, swinging his blade arm. The hit threw Rook to the ground, but he rolled, landed, and lunged again, biting through one of the mech's power lines. The machine staggered. Flames erupted. From below, Eli shouted, "Rook, behind you!" Another mech rose from the smoke, aiming its cannons directly at them. Mara fired desperately, shouting, "Run, Eli!" But Eli didn't run. He stood his ground, hands shaking, voice trembling as he called out, "Rook, stop them!" The honey badger turned, eyes glowing white from the reflection of the fire, and roared. It wasn't the sound of an animal. It was something older, something primal that made even the machines hesitate for a heartbeat. Then he leapt. The explosion that followed turned the sky gold. The two mechs collapsed into the dirt, metal bending like clay. When the smoke cleared, Rook was standing atop the wreckage, chest heaving, fur scorched, eyes burning with fury. Dravkor stared at him, disbelief turning into fear. For the first time in his life, he stepped back. Eli walked closer, his small frame outlined by fire. "You still think we're weak?" he asked quietly. Dravkor didn't answer. He turned and retreated into the smoke, shouting for retreat. The surviving soldiers followed in panic. The humans watched in silence as the ships lifted off, leaving behind wreckage and silence. Mara walked toward Eli, placing a hand on his shoulder. "They'll come again." Eli nodded. "Then we'll be ready." Rook stood beside him, wounded but unbroken, staring at the stars. His low growl rolled through the night like a promise, the kind that the universe would never forget. The smoke of battle still hung over Delta 9. Burned metal, dust, and silence replaced the roars of war. The humans had survived another wave. What no one expected was what came next. The Vark Empire didn't send another fleet. They went quiet. Entire sectors of space stopped moving. Patrol ships vanished. Communication lines went dark. The most aggressive race in the galaxy was hiding. Inside the underground base, Mara scrolled through intercepted transmissions. "They're calling it the Beast of Earth," she said. "They think it's some kind of human weapon project." Eli sat on a crate, cleaning Rook's fur gently. The honey badger's side was bandaged, but his eyes were sharp as ever. "They're scared of him," the boy said softly. Mara looked at him. "They're scared of both of you." Outside the bunker, the surviving soldiers rebuilt the camp. People smiled for the first time in months. Hope had a face now, a small boy and the creature that made an empire tremble. Across the galaxy, things changed fast. In the colonies, humans began to wear the black and white emblem of a badger on their armor. It became a sign of courage. Rook's mark, they called it. And wherever that mark appeared, resistance flared like wildfire. Even alien species who once served under the Vark started whispering. A single recording spread across the black market. A shaky video of Rook tearing through the Vark captain's mech, with Eli standing calmly beside the fire. The caption read, "They called the child weak. Now fear has learned his name." Meanwhile, on the Vark homeworld, the Emperor sat in silence. His council argued, some demanded more war, others spoke of negotiation. But the Emperor's eyes stayed fixed on the frozen image of the honey badger mid-leap. "This creature," he said, voice low. "It breaks every rule of fear. It does not run. It does not stop. It fights even when death waits." His advisor swallowed hard. "It's only an animal." The Emperor turned to him cold and sharp. "Then tell me why my soldiers dream of it screaming." Back on Delta 9, the humans were preparing for the next move. Mara gathered the small team. "If we stay here, they'll hit us again. But if we move to the relay station, we can reach the entire human network." Eli nodded. "We can tell everyone we're alive. And that they can fight," Mara said. That night, as they moved through the desert under twin moons, the wind carried the smell of fire and ozone. Rook walked ahead, his shadow stretching long across the dunes. Eli followed, tired but unafraid. Halfway to the relay, Rook stopped. His body tensed. The ground trembled slightly under their feet. Mara raised her weapon. "Another patrol?" Then from the horizon a light appeared. Not red like Vark fire, but white and soft. A small alien transport landed, the insignia of a neutral species glowing on its hull. The hatch opened. A tall alien stepped out slowly, unarmed, its hands raised. "Human child," it said in a trembling voice. "We come in peace." The soldiers aimed their rifles. "Why are you here?" Mara demanded. The alien bowed its head. "The Vark have lost control of their worlds. Whole fleets refuse to fight. You have shown them something they cannot understand." Eli blinked. "What's that?" The alien smiled faintly. "Courage, and something stronger than fear." Rook stepped forward, sniffing the air, then relaxed. The alien exhaled in relief. "They call him the Deathless One," it whispered. "They say the beast protects humanity itself." Mara lowered her weapon slowly. "So what do you want from us?" The alien looked at Eli. "An alliance. The galaxy is changing. Everyone is choosing sides. We choose yours." For a moment, nobody spoke. The stars above them shimmered in silence. Then Eli smiled, a small, tired smile that looked far older than his years. "Then help us rebuild," he said. The alien nodded. "The legend of the boy and the beast will travel beyond the stars, and maybe it will save more than just humans." Rook made a deep, rumbling sound like approval. The humans began to lower their weapons. The wind carried the sound away, soft and endless. Above them, new constellations formed as ships left orbit. Not for war, but for something bigger. Months passed. The story of the human child and his honey badger had spread beyond every known star. To the oppressed worlds, it was hope. To tyrants, it was a warning. But for Eli and Rook, it was only another day to survive. The resistance had grown into an army. Humans and aliens stood side by side now, wearing the symbol of the black and white beast. The Vark Empire was shrinking, cornered and desperate. And yet, deep within their dying fleet, the Emperor prepared one final strike. He would not die in shame. On the bridge of his massive flagship, the Emperor's eyes glowed red. "They think a child humiliated us," he growled. "Then we end the myth. We burn the boy and the beast before the whole galaxy." The fleet launched toward Delta 9, thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. It wasn't war anymore. It was revenge. Inside the human command center, Mara stared at the radar. "They're coming. All of them." The room fell silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Eli stood near the window, looking at the horizon where dark clouds gathered. Rook sat beside him, calm, almost still. "They'll never stop," Mara said. "Not until we're gone." Eli turned to her, voice soft but certain. "Then we don't run." "Not this time." Rook's head lifted slightly. His claws scraped against the floor. The boy placed a hand on his fur. "Let's show them why fear was never ours." When the Vark fleet arrived, the sky turned black. Their ships blocked the sun. Their weapons glowed like dying stars. The ground shook as the first bombardments began, but the humans didn't hide. They stood in the open fields, their armor marked with Rook's colors. The allied aliens stood beside them, united under one symbol, the beast that fought without fear. Mara gave the order. "All units, defend Delta 9. The battle began like thunder." Explosions lit the ground. The air was fire and light and death. Eli ran through the chaos, shouting orders like a commander twice his age. Rook was beside him, tearing through enemy lines, unstoppable. Every alien that faced him froze before the charge, because deep inside, something primal remembered that look. Rook wasn't just an animal anymore. He was the embodiment of defiance. The Emperor's flagship descended into the atmosphere, its cannons turning the ground into molten glass. Through the smoke, his voice echoed across frequencies. "Child of Earth, show yourself." Eli looked up. "He's here," he said quietly. Rook growled, low and deep. They climbed aboard a transport craft. Piloted by Mara, the ship weaved through the firestorm, heading straight for the flagship. Inside the ship, Mara shouted over the noise, "If we go up there, we might not come back." Eli's eyes were calm. "We already changed the galaxy. Let's finish it." They landed hard on the flagship's upper deck. The metal burned beneath their feet. Vark soldiers charged in, screaming war cries, but Rook met them first. The deck became chaos, claws, gunfire, metal, and blood. Nothing could stop the beast. Eli walked through the smoke until the Emperor appeared, towering, armored, half machine, half hatred. "So this is the child," the Emperor sneered. "The galaxy's little ghost." Eli met his eyes. "You lost because you never understood us." The Emperor raised his weapon. "Enlighten me, then." Rook leapt before the shot could fire. The blast hit him mid-air, throwing him across the deck. He crashed hard, smoke rising from his side. "Rook!" Eli screamed, running toward him, but the Emperor blocked his path, blade in hand. "Now you are weak again," he said coldly. Eli looked at Rook. The honey badger was breathing, barely. His eyes opened, meeting the boy's. Something passed between them, wordless and eternal. Then Rook pushed himself up, slow, broken, but alive. He growled, not loud this time, but deep, steady, defiant. Eli whispered, "One more time." The beast roared. He charged, faster than any machine could react. The Emperor swung his blade, but Rook went under it, slashing through the metal joints, tearing circuits apart. Sparks filled the air. The Emperor screamed as Rook bit deep into his chest plate. Mara's ship swooped in, firing a missile straight into the Emperor's reactor core. The explosion tore through the flagship, flames devouring everything. As the fire rose, Eli crouched beside Rook, holding him close. "You did it, buddy," he whispered. The honey badger's breathing slowed, but his eyes stayed open, watching the sky, peaceful at last. When the flames cleared, only silence remained. Hours later, on every human and alien world, a single message broadcast through the stars. A boy stood on a cracked battlefield, a symbol of courage painted on his sleeve. Behind him lay the wreckage of the Vark flagship. His voice echoed across the galaxy. They mocked the human child's weakness. The honey badger showed them what fear means, and now, fear is gone. That day, across countless worlds, children began to whisper stories of the beast that defied empires. And somewhere, deep in the soil of Delta 9, a small creature's spirit watched over humanity still, waiting, unyielding, eternal. Because fear might belong to others. But courage? Courage was always human hope.